Why get into commercial real estate? You absolutely shouldn't. Send me all your leads. The end. Go away. So seriously, commercial real estate, it's a question we get all the time. What's the opportunity there? It seems like it's so mysterious, right? So in this episode, I want to take away some of that mystery of commercial real estate because I personally love it way more than residential. And residential I've done for half my life. But the commercial piece, oh my gosh, so much better. And I think I'd like to share with you some of the reasons why I think it's better. So let's get into it. So with commercial real estate, there's so many different things that we could talk about, and we're going to get into them. But it's usually, if you're into single family residences, you're either graduating to that, and what's the next step up? That's right, multifamily. So people usually go from single family to multifamily. It's because it's what we know, we understand it, which is, I get it, but I've done that same process, and now I just see so much more opportunity on the other commercial asset side. So I want to talk about that specifically, get into it, and explain why I think you should look at getting into it as well. So some of the properties that I've done are going to be like retail, also warehouse, industrial space, office space, executive suites. The one thing that I haven't done necessarily is I haven't gotten into the storage units, which I'm looking at, and we actually have some training on it coming up, so I'm excited to learn about storage units. But I want to talk to you about the other stuff that I do know and I know well. So let's talk and start with multifamily. So again, this is a natural progression. I feel like if you're an investor and you've been doing just traditional fix and flips or buying rentals, that next step, maybe you get a duplex, maybe you get a triplex, fourplex, and then it's like, let's go to a 10 unit, 20 unit, whatever that looks like. And why would be some of the reasons you want to do that? Much more manageable, having multiple units under one roof, right? So instead of having 10 roofs, you have 10 units inside one roof, right? So I'm not sitting there replacing all these different roofs, AC units, and things like that. From a maintenance standpoint, I don't have to maintain and upkeep all 10 properties. I just have one that I need to. I also have one tax bill. I have one roof, but I'm able to monetize my time. I'm not driving all over town. So having a multifamily unit usually means I could be more productive with my time, energy, money, effort, all of it. So this is probably stuff that you've already thought of, something to look at getting into. So let's get into the other ones, some of my favorites. So first off, you get to meet with a different type of buyer, different caliber. I don't want to say it's just different, right? So you get to network with a totally different group of people. So your banking's different, the realtors are different, what you're looking for is different. So it gets to open up your mind slightly more. And in doing so, I'll give you an example. Like I go to the doctor's, and I see this doctor has multiple clinics. And I asked the doctor, hey, do you own these buildings? He said, no. You're paying rent in all these places? He said, yeah. I said, what if I was able to show you a way where you could own the real estate, so if you ever decide to sell your business practice, you still have a form of income from your real estate. I'd love to partner with you. Is this something you're interested in? Yes. So now we own 5 different buildings together doing that. There's so many different ways to get creative in commercial real estate. You might have heard me talk about looking at and taking smaller buildings and now some bigger ones as well. But what I'll do is I'll look at them and think, what is the highest and best use for this piece of real estate, right? So some other reasons why you may want to look at getting into commercial real estate. There's not as much competition. I want to explain this. Most of the time when people are looking at commercial real estate, they're an end user. They're looking to put their business in there. So you have that as a certain bucket. And then you have up high, you have institutional money. That's money that's, they're looking for big projects. They're looking to deploy a lot of money into an asset to spit out a certain return that's stable and so on. I'm not trying to compete with those guys. What I do is I focus in on this, and I'm not saying don't focus in on that, but I'm just telling you where I focus. I focus in on a sweet spot between $1 million and $5 million. Nobody really competes in that space because they can't offload it necessarily very easily without assembling a lot of them and selling them to an institution, and then the mom and pop down below. So what does that leave? I'm glad you asked. It leaves usually assets where they've been owned for years and years and years in a family trust or you name it, and that property has had deferred maintenance. What's deferred maintenance? It's basically neglect. It's just a nice way of saying, hey, they neglected it. Or you could call them slumlords, whatever it is, right? That's the way I classify it. I look at a building and I think, I wouldn't want to work there. Nobody else is going to want to work there. And usually those buildings are vacant. When you're dealing with a company that has those, maybe it's a family or, typically a family or some sort of trust, they're looking at that. It's a dead asset. They're looking at cash flow. That's why they invested. Just like you're looking at creating cash flow. This thing has served its purpose and it's at the end of the life for them. It no longer has that value that it once had where it's producing. In fact, it's the opposite. They are pouring money typically into some of these assets, meaning, they're paying for maintenance, taxes, utilities every single month and stuff. It's just not renting. This is where I see opportunity. Other people go, oh, that's an ugly building. I don't want something like that. Me, I'm like, what could it be? It's a blank canvas. What if I could create anything here? What would that look like? So again, why would you want to invest in commercial real estate? It's an open field. Nobody's really looking at these. Now, if that was the ugliest house on the street, how many of you guys would be jumping on that opportunity if you could get seller financing and pick it up at a substantial discount? Most of you. This is no different than the commercial. Just all you have to do is think about it just like you think about residential, just shift it. But we get caught up because of the word commercial. So what I like to do in that situation is I offer seller financing. I offer seller financing or ask for seller financing on literally every commercial deal I do. So let's say I'm asking for seller financing. Why would they give it to me? Well, I just named off several reasons. They're paying every month. Nobody's renting it. They got maintenance, taxes, utilities, all this stuff. So let's just say you were in that spot. You were shelling out money every single month for something that's not producing you money. And then I said, hey, I want to give you a chunk of money down. I want to take over this headache for you. And let me pay you starting next month, or maybe I negotiated it out a year, but I'm going to give you a chunk of money now. I'm going to reposition it. I'm going to start paying you every single month. You're going to be my note holder. Basically take away that headache that you have. That's usually why I get seller financing. It's not an emotional decision. That's why I like commercial as well. There's no emotional charge when someone's selling a building. It's not like you're insulting their house. They realized this was an asset. It did what it did. They're not doing the heavy lifting. So if you make an offer makes sense to them, they're usually going to take it. So some form of distress. I would say a lot of the buildings I get are in that type of distress, meaning they've been neglected. Not that they're in foreclosure, but it might as well mean the same thing. Nobody wants the building. And typically some of these guys, they just don't want to do the heavy lifting. So if you're okay with rolling up your sleeves, doing a new design, facade of the building and getting it leased up, you could get a lot of opportunities. You could get a lot of real estate doing it that way. When looking at the building, also I figure what's the highest and best use. So I've taken office and done executive suites. I've taken office and I've turned it into multifamily. Warehouse, maybe it could be carved up differently. So you get to get way more creative than you typically can. In residential, you can get way more creative in commercial. There's much more options and a lot less competition. Usually the upside is significantly more. Think about it like this. When everybody's going to one spot and competing, what's that do? It drives margins down. When there's less competition, what happens? Your margins increase because there's less people that want the product. And it's not that less people want commercial. They're just not aware of the opportunities. So think about it. The next time you're passing by a building, just like you do a house, when you pass by it, you investors, when you pass by a house that has long grass and it's looking shabby, you think, oh, something's going on with that house. I should make an offer. Same thing goes for commercial. It's in some form of distress. Could you make that deal make sense for them to sell it? So to recap, getting into commercial real estate and why you should, You get seller financing, much more favorable terms. There's so many different options out there, less competition. Do I need to name more? Like, take a look at it. Start looking at commercial real estate. It's not as scary as you think. If you're worried about it and scared and just not sure where to get started, click on the link below. Schedule an appointment with myself or one of my team members. We'll lift the veil even more, trying to help you find a way in your market to get into commercial real estate. Anyways, looking forward to talking to you. Don't be scared of it. Dive in. Let's get going.